and welcome to the Completely Biased Podcast. I'm Sean, joined with my friend Trevor on our poker table in our man cave doing our podcast, our studio, our quote-unquote studio. We try to make it as much as a studio as possible, but anyways, Trevor, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Really tired after last night's World Series game.
I'm really tired too. And speaking of World Series, congratulations to the Houston Astros pulling it out in 7 games. Most of the games were really exciting. Yesterday was kind of like they scored 5 runs in the second inning and then kind of coasted to victory. So, but congratulations, Houston Astros. Really, I'm glad that they ended up pulling it out.
First World Series title.
Yep, so. First World Series title for the Houston Astros. And a great time to kind of take people's minds off of what happened earlier this year in Houston and bring some joy and stuff to that city that experienced so much devastation in the past few months.
Absolutely. It's their first title in the city since Elijah won, I'm pretty sure, in 95. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's not that long a wait, but
it's something.
It's still...
It's not Cleveland bad.
It's not Cleveland or Phoenix bad or something like that, but it's been a while. So we're going to talk about MLB for a little bit. We have, of course, the World Series, which is probably one of the top World Series of all time. Just tons of back and forth, tons of runs being scored, tons of jaw-dropping moments. And then we're going to talk about, Trevor wants to talk about the free agency opening in MLB, which is kind of, I didn't know that it opened the day after the World Series ended.
The offseason, so we'll get to it. The offseason started at 9 this morning. And MLB has a little bit of a different free agency than other sports, and I'll get to that in a minute. But just going over the World Series, the first 6 games were just back and forth. Houston just beating on LA responding back. Nobody really would give the other team anything. In Game 2, no one thought Houston was going to win, and they pull it out of nowhere. And then in Game 5, no one thought LA was going to win. They pull it out of nowhere. Well,
it was just...
In Game 5, you have probably the AL Cy Young Award winner in Dallas Keuchel, probably the NL Cy Young runner-up in Clayton Kershaw, and the score was 13-12 by the end. It
was crazy.
That right there in itself makes a crazy World Series.
And back and forth in extras, just
I know.
We score 3 runs, you score 3 runs.
It was really exciting. Last night, it wasn't as disappointing as the score looks. I
wouldn't say that the score looks disappointing, though. It's kind of like the whole series was so good, it's good to go out on a decisive victory or something.
Well, the Dodgers had their chances. They left, I think, 10 men on base. They left, I think, 4 or 5 in scoring position with their best hitters up. It's not like...
Yeah, but the Dodgers
pitcher
are also
was coming up.
The Astros are young, but the Dodgers are really young, especially in that heart of that lineup.
The heart of their lineup is extremely young.
So, maybe the pressure got to them at that stage, and it
got to Bellinger all World Series.
Yeah.
Cody Bellinger set the record for 17 strikeouts in a World Series. He set that at 13, so he just kept breaking his own record there.
He's going to be good, but he's going to strike out a bunch.
Yeah, he's just going to have to adjust. He's 22. He'll be fine. I'm not worried about Cody Bellinger.
He's going to be a great player, but he's, strikeouts aren't always like, oh, you strike out a lot, you're a horrible baseball player. No. He's going to strike out 300 times a year and then also hit, 40 home runs every year. So I would take that.
Yeah, he's fine. Darvish, there's a lot of questions about Darvish now, though, because after getting shelled in both games in the World Series, people are wondering if he's an ace. I've always considered him an ace, but he's never, the last 2 games that he's pitched, he's been terrible.
When he was on the Rangers, he was a kind of a sure thing, but he's gone through, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's gone through some injury kind of problems, and then... Yeah,
he's been injured on and off.
Yeah, and then...
He's been healthy most of this year.
He just didn't look like Darvish of old.
He didn't. I wonder if it was the move to LA. He didn't look great in LA. He had a good run there for about 5 or 6 games, but overall in LA he was not as good as he was in Texas. Yeah. But at the same time, he's also a free agent now, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Someone will pick him up.
Yeah, he's going to get paid.
Yeah.
But back to the Astros. I mean, George Springer was phenomenally batted .390, hit home run 4 straight games, I believe, which is a World Series record. He was just unbelievable.
Won MVP.
Yeah, MVP by a landslide.
Yep.
Carlos Correa, shout out to him. He got engaged 5 minutes after the World Series ended. That was pretty cool. That was a cool moment to watch. But I think the unsung hero last night is Charlie Morton, a pitcher that nobody really talks about. He's like,
you were talking about it like all these aces are getting shelled in this World Series, and then now we're gonna have like two kind of Darvish was up there for the Dodgers, but it's gonna be kind of like a weird battle between the pitchers because they're kind of running on empty as far as starting pitchers goes, and he just pitches a freaking almost a shutout, and just like.
Yeah, I think when he comes in, I mean, he came in, pitched the last 5 innings of the game, and nobody talked about Charlie Morton at all. I mean, he was cast out from the Philadelphia Phillies, for Pete's sake. Like, nobody talked about Charlie Morton. The Astros gave him a chance. He had a good year. When the disabled list came back, wasn't as great, but, I mean, he was sharp last night. He basically shut the Dodgers out in the last 5 innings, only gave 1 run. So that was a kind of an unsung hero. And then shout out to Justin Verlander and Carlos Beltran. They got their first World Series rings. Yeah, both of them deserved that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Justin Verlander's kind of... He was always... on those Detroit teams that he was on, they were always like, oh, Detroit's coming. They're going to win. They're going to be really good this year. And then just peter out.
Yeah, something would always happen.
Something would always happen, but good for him finally, like, getting that first World Series win. And there's nothing stopping this Houston Astros team from, like, repeating or anything like that. They're super young, too, like I said with the Dodgers. The Dodgers are younger, but that's just... We have so many good young players in MLB. That's kind of where we are. Like, all the playoff teams were pretty young.
Yeah, it was...
the Cubs are young.
Cubs are super young.
Nats are young. Yeah. Diamondbacks were young. Dodgers are super, super young. Where 2 of their stars are 22.
Right.
2 of their best players. Justin Turner's like their older statesman.
He's still in his prime, so it's not like
28.
He's not leaving his prime anytime soon.
But super young teams and super great stars for them will be all up and down through this lineup. Both lineups for both teams. It was really, really great just seeing the young stars.
It's good. It's a win for baseball. 7 games of back and forth baseball. That's just a win, right?
A lot of runs.
Yeah, it helps.
Exciting games.
It helps. That's for sure. But anyway, so as of 9 a.m. this morning, the offseason begins. So free agency. So in baseball, since there is no salary cap, they give a team is allowed to offer a player on his own team a qualifying offer. That player, the offer is the average of the top 125 salaries in baseball. So this year, the qualifying offer is a 1-year, $18 million offer. If the player accepts the offer, he's on the team for 1 year for $18 million, and he goes into free agency next year. If he declines it, and he's signed by a different team, that team sacrifices a mid-round draft pick to the team. So, for example, Jake Arrieta is going to get offered the qualifying offer today. He has 10 days to accept or decline. When he inevitably declines, he'll be signed for $150 million or something like that, and the Cubs will receive a draft pick if he ends up signing elsewhere. So that started today. That lasts for 5 days, and then 5 days from today, free agency begins. So it's pretty quick. Next week is the GM meetings. A couple weeks after that is the owners' meetings. So
baseball is a pretty long season. So it makes sense for them to jump right into free agency and stuff.
Absolutely.
Like, people think of basketball as kind of like really quick, but baseball's even quicker with that. It's just once literally the day after the World Series, people are already moving.
Right. We've already got Justin Upton re-signs with the Angels for 5 years, $100 million, which is He's a good player. He had a great year. I'm going to rag on the Angels a little bit here, though. They always do this. They always overpay what I feel like is an overpay for somebody who's on the back half of his career. Now, he had a great year this year. He walked a ton. He had some good power.
What was he, like 30?
30, 32, 33, something like that. He's still in...
Are you sure I think he's like 30.
He's in his prime, but he's towards the end of his prime.
Yeah, but he's been a good player, or he's had his ups and downs, obviously, but...
He's been very inconsistent, but overall, he's a good player.
Earlier in his career, he was a good player for a long time. He was an MVP candidate, and then, kind of took a step back, and then this past year, he was really, really good. $100 million, do you think that's really overpaying for him?
Maybe it's not necessarily overpaying. I just feel like
I know what you're saying because the Angels always make these big free agency signings and then do nothing.
Yeah. Okay. So he'll be 31 next year. So by the end of the contract, he'll be 36 years old, which feels like a lot for a guy whose defense isn't that great. So you're probably at some point going to have to move him to the designated hitter. But they did this with Josh Hamilton, bust. Bobby Abreu, busted. Albert Pujols, you're still paying him. Albert Pujols is a good player, and he was good for 2-3 years with them. But now, he's been negative. He's a negative player now.
Yeah.
They did it with Vernon Wells. These guys, they sign them to huge deals. They have 1, 2, maybe good years, and then they're trying to get rid of their contracts in 2020 because he's not producing anymore. Nobody's going to take him. So it just feels like the Angels always do this. This is not JD Martinez, who's 27 and just had a career year and is about to get paid like crazy. Justin Upton is 3 years older. By the end of his contract, he's going to be 36.
And he's been playing for a long time.
He's been playing for a long time, too. So it just feels... it's a very Angels move. I'm not going to...
Yeah, like I said, the Angels seem to always get these, try to go out there and strike in free agency and make these big offers to people and then ended up not making the playoffs every year.
They never make the playoffs.
No, poor Mike Trout, man.
I can't. I still think there's one playoff appearance in 6 years. That's so crazy. But
it's like a few years ago when they first got Albert, and one other player, I can't remember his name, but they were like, "Oh, super team."
Yeah, Josh Hamilton.
Yeah, they're gonna come up and they're gonna be like the best team in the AL, and then nope.
They made one playoff appearance with that team. There's more. They traded for Zach Greinke, didn't make the playoffs. They signed Mark Teixeira once, didn't make the playoffs.
But isn't that just kind of unfortunate for them? Because Zach Greinke is good now. Maybe they just didn't get him as good time.
He is. It just seems
it's kind of unlucky for them.
It just feels like people get out there and then just stop playing. I don't.
It's because Anaheim, dude. We're not even the LA. We're Anaheim.
Yeah.
Let's just go to Disneyland.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's just the most Angels move I can think of. I feel like they need to get younger, and they continue to sign these older players. So,
any other, big players, with big contracts, do you think are moving pretty soon here?
Giancarlo Stanton will be moved at some point this offseason. And somebody...
That's exciting.
Yeah, that's going to be fun for somebody. 59 home runs last year. So, that's just a fun player to watch. Someone's going to get Giancarlo Stanton. Most likely...
Why do I feel like it's going to be the Yankees?
It'll be the Giants, most likely.
Okay.
He wants to stay on the West Coast. He does have a no-trade clause, so it'll most likely be the Giants.
He wants to stay on the West Coast. He's
he's from the West Coast. He wants to go to the West Coast. I'm sorry. That's where he's from. So he wants to go to the... San Francisco's his preference.
So he's going to go to San Francisco. Of course, they had their one bad year, so now they're going to go win two World Series in a row. That's what's going to happen.
The other scary part is he said he would be willing to go to St. Louis, so that's not good for me. But he'll be the biggest name that gets traded, most likely. The biggest thing is... This whole offseason is going to set up next year. Next year's offseason free agency, Clayton Kershaw, Josh Donaldson, Manny Machado, Daniel Murphy, and a million others. I'm blanking. But it's Bryce Harper. Sorry, Bryce Harper. It'll be the best.
The guy that you think is going to come to the Cubs.
He is going to the Cubs.
But a lot of money going to get thrown around there.
So I think this year is going to be a lot of 1-year deals, smaller deals, prepping for next offseason when it's going to be the greatest free agency class ever.
Do you think Clayton Kershaw leaves LA?
I don't.
Yeah.
I really don't. I don't think it's going to happen.